In 1986, a man walked onto a soccer field in Mexico City and did something that had never been done before and has never been done since. He punched a ball into the net with his fist in a World Cup quarterfinal against England, with 114,000 people watching inside the stadium, with hundreds of millions more watching around the world. The referee didn't see it. The goal stood. His team went on to win the World Cup. And when journalists asked him after the game how the ball went in, he smiled and said it was scored a little with the head of Maradona and a little with the hand of God. That man was Diego Maradona. And what happened in the next 4 minutes after that goal is the part of the story that almost nobody knows. Because 4 minutes later, in the same game, on the same field, against the same team, Diego Maradona scored what FIFA officially declared the greatest goal in World Cup history. Crime and art, in the same game, by the same man, within 4 minutes of each other. This is the story of the moment that changed soccer forever. And I promise you, even if you've heard the name Maradona before, you have never heard the full story. Before I tell you about the goal, I need to tell you about the war. Because without the war, the goal is just a controversial moment in a soccer game. With the war, it becomes something else entirely. In 1982, 4 years before this World Cup, Argentina and England fought a real war. Not a metaphor, not a rivalry. An actual military conflict over a group of islands in the South Atlantic called the Falkland Islands, or as Argentinians call them, the Malvinas. The war lasted 74 days. Over 900 people died. Argentina lost. The humiliation was national, deep, and unhealed. For years later, Argentina and England were drawn together in the quarterfinals of the 1986 FIFA World Cup in Mexico. And on the Argentine side, there was one player. One man who had grown up in the poorest slum in Buenos Aires, a place called Villa Fiorito, where sewage ran through the streets and families of 10 slept in 2 rooms. A man who had started kicking a ball barefoot at age 3 and by age 10 was already being described as a player that appeared once in a generation. Diego Armando Maradona. He was 25 years old in 1986. He was the captain of Argentina. He was, by the consensus of every expert in the sport, the best player on the planet. And on June 22, 1986, he walked onto the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City to face England. Not just as a soccer player, as a representative of a nation that had been humiliated by that exact opponent 4 years earlier. As the son of a country that had lost 323 sailors when England sank the Belgrano, an Argentine ship, during the war. As the kid from the slum who carried the weight of 30 million people on his shoulders. The game kicked off, and what happened next, in 51 minutes of the second half, became the most talked about sequence in the history of sports. 51st minute. Argentina versus England. The score is 0-0. A long ball is played forward into the England penalty area. Maradona runs onto it. England's goalkeeper Peter Shilton, one of the best in the world, comes rushing out to claim the ball. Shilton is 6 feet tall. Maradona is 5 feet 5 inches. There is no way Maradona wins this ball in the air. Except he does. Not with his head. With his left fist raised discreetly above his head, he punches the ball into the net as Shilton's hand passes over it. The movement is so subtle, so fast, so perfectly disguised that the referee, positioned 30 yards away, sees only what it looked like, a header. The goal stands. England protest. Maradona runs to celebrate, looking back over his shoulder, knowing exactly what he did, checking if the referee had seen it. He hadn't. The Argentine players didn't know at first. They asked Maradona, "Was that your hand?" He said, "Celebrate. Just celebrate. Don't say anything." Later, in the press conference, came the line that entered history. A little with the head of Maradona, and a little with the hand of God. He didn't apologize. He didn't deny it. He wrapped the most blatant act of cheating in World Cup history in poetry. And somehow, the world was divided not between those who condemned him and those who defended him, but between those who loved him and those who were devastated by him. In Argentina, that goal was not seen as cheating. It was seen as justice, a small act of revenge for the Malvinas, for the sailors, for the humiliation of 1982. That is what soccer can carry. That is what a ball crossing a line can mean. For minutes later, the same game, the same field, the same opponent. Maradona receives the ball just inside his own half, 60 yards from the English goal. He is surrounded. There are defenders between him and the goal. By every tactical calculation, the correct decision is to pass. He doesn't pass. What happens in the next 11 seconds is this. Maradona dribbles past Peter Beardsley, past Peter Reid. He cuts inside. He goes around Terry Butcher, twice. He rounds Terry Fenwick. And then, one-on-one with Peter Shilton, the same goalkeeper he had punched the ball past 4 minutes earlier. He slides the ball to the left and into the net. 6 English players. 11 seconds. 60 yards. He didn't sprint in a straight line. He weaved. He cut. He changed direction 6 times at full speed while keeping the ball within inches of his feet. He made 6 of the best professional footballers in the world, players who trained every day for exactly this situation, looked like they were standing still. The stadium erupted. The commentator, Victor Hugo Morales, broadcasting live in Spanish, lost his mind completely. His call of that goal became one of the most famous pieces of sports commentary in history. He screamed, cried, and eventually ran out of words. So he just kept screaming Maradona, while the crowd noise drowned everything else out. After the game, England midfielder Steve Hodge, one of the 6 players Maradona dribbled past, swapped his jersey with Maradona. That jersey was later sold at auction for $9.3 million. It is the most expensive piece of sports memorabilia ever sold. More than Babe Ruth's bat, more than Michael Jordan's jersey, more than anything from any sport in human history. FIFA asked fans around the world to vote for the greatest World Cup goal of all time. It wasn't close. Maradona's second goal in that game, scored 4 minutes after committing the most controversial act in the sport's history, won with over 50% of the vote. The goal of the century. Official. Voted. Undisputed. That game, those 2 goals, changed soccer in ways that are still being felt today. The first goal, the hand of God, directly led to the creation of goal line technology and the eventual introduction of VAR, the video assistant referee system you see at every World Cup today. The argument, the referee can't see everything, that England made that day in 1986 took 32 years to be fully resolved. But it was resolved. Because of that goal. The second goal changed how the world understood what one player could do on a soccer field. Before 1986, the conventional wisdom was that modern professional football was too organized, too tactical, too structured for one player to make the kind of individual difference that Maradona made that day. The game had evolved beyond individual brilliance. Maradona proved otherwise. In 11 seconds against England, he single-handedly dismantled that theory. Every conversation you've ever heard about Messi versus Ronaldo, the debate about who is the greatest player alive, exists because of what Maradona did on June 22, 1986. He set the standard. He defined what it looks like when one human being does something on a soccer field that no tactical system can account for. And the hand of God changed something deeper than technology. It started the conversation about the soul of sport itself, about the line between gamesmanship and cheating, about whether the outcome of the greatest sporting event on earth could be decided by something as simple as a referee not seeing what happened. That conversation, started in Mexico in 1986, is still happening today. Every VAR review, every offside line drawn on a screen, every controversial decision at the 2026 World Cup that you watch in the coming weeks is the direct descendant of what happened in the 51st minute of Argentina versus England on June 22, 1986. Diego Maradona died on November 25, 2020. He was 60 years old. When the news broke, Argentina stopped. The government declared 3 days of national mourning. Over 1 million people lined up to pass by his coffin in the presidential palace in Buenos Aires. The line stretched for miles. People waited for 8, 10, 12 hours just to be in the same room as him for a few seconds. Outside Argentina, the reaction was the same. In Naples, Italy, the city where he played club football for 7 years and won 2 Italian championships that nobody thought possible, people painted murals on every building they could find. They lit candles in the streets. They wept publicly for a man who had not played for their club in over 30 years. Because here is what the hand of God story often misses when it's told outside of South America. Maradona was not just a soccer player. He was the proof that someone from nothing, from absolute poverty, from a slum with no running water, could become the greatest in the world at something. He was the proof that the game didn't belong to the rich countries with the infrastructure and the academies and the resources. It belonged to whoever had the most talent and the most will. He was complicated. He struggled with addiction for most of his adult life. He made mistakes that cost him years of his career and damaged relationships he could never repair. He was not a perfect man, but on June 22, 1986, in 51 minutes of football, he was something else. He was the best there has ever been, at anything, and the world has never forgotten it. So now you know the full story, not just the goal, the war behind the goal, the poverty behind the player, the technology that was born from the controversy, the million people who lined the streets when he died. The hand of God wasn't just a cheat. It was a statement from a man who had spent his entire life being told that the rules of the world didn't favor people like him. And the goal of the century, 4 minutes later, was his answer to that. You can break the rules, and then you can be so brilliant that nobody can ever take it away from you. That's Maradona. That's why this moment changed soccer forever. And that's why, 40 years later, people are still talking about 11 seconds on a field in Mexico City. Tomorrow on this channel, the real reason the United States has never won the World Cup. It's not what you think, and it might be the most important soccer story in American history. Drop a comment below. Had you heard the full Maradona story before today? Subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow.